If I had $1 for every time I wished I was born into a different family, I'd have been able to pay for college 10 times over and still have enough left to send my mother and stepfather on a one-way trip to Antarctica. But unfortunately, life doesn't work that way. My name is Emily, and this mess of a story starts with my birth because apparently, even that was a mistake. I've pieced together the details over the years, mostly from snippets of drunken arguments and my mother's favorite guilt-tripping rants. My parents' marriage was already circling the drain when my mom, Lisa, got pregnant with me. My father, Brian, was convinced she did it on purpose to trap him. He accused her of baby trapping him so much that "I never wanted this kid" practically became his catchphrase. Yeah. Real heartwarming. Things were bad from the start. My earliest memories aren't of bedtime stories or laughter but of screaming matches, slammed doors, and broken dishes. The house was always a war zone and I was the collateral damage. When I was 5, my dad finally had enough and left. Not just left though. He disappeared. No child support. No birthday cards. No see you on weekends arrangement. Just gone. And my mom? Oh, she was pissed. Not at him, surprisingly at me. She never said it outright, but she didn't have to. In her eyes, I was the reason her life fell apart. She was a single mother now, struggling to make ends meet, and every time she looked at me, she saw the man who walked out on her. "Do you have any idea what I gave up for you?" she'd say whenever she was in one of her moods. I could have had a life, Emily. By the time I was old enough to understand, I knew better than to argue. Because the truth was, she did blame me. And there was no changing that. But despite it all, there was one person who made me feel like I mattered, my grandmother, Margaret. If there was one person who made me feel like I wasn't just some mistake, it was my grandmother, Margaret. She was my dad's mom, and honestly, I have no idea why she didn't hate me. I mean, if my dad wanted nothing to do with me, you'd think his mother would be the same. But nope. Grandma Margaret was different. She actually cared. Every weekend, she'd pick me up in her old, beat-up Buick and take me to her house, a cozy little place that smelled like cinnamon and books. She taught me how to bake, let me watch whatever I wanted on TV, and listen to me ramble about dinosaurs, planets, or whatever weird obsession I had that week. Most importantly, she made me feel like I belonged. Mom never stopped me from visiting her, but she also never acknowledged it. If Grandma picked me up, Mom would just stand at the door, arms crossed, barely saying a word. And if Grandma ever invited her inside, the answer was always a tight-lipped, "No thank you." The two of them had history. Bad history. I never got the full story, but I picked up bits and pieces over the years. Grandma Margaret had never liked my mom, and the feeling was mutual. She thought I wasn't good enough for your father, Mom sneered one night after too much wine. Like he was some damn prize. Based on what I knew about my dad, Grandma Margaret might have had a point. But even though they could barely stand to be in the same room together, my mom never fought Grandma over me. Maybe because she didn't care enough to, or maybe because she liked the break from parenting. Either way, I was grateful. Then when I was 13, Grandma sat me down for a conversation that changed everything. "I've set up a college fund for you, sweetheart," she said, patting my hand. "You won't have to rely on anyone when the time comes." At first I didn't get it. College was still years away, and no one else in my family even talked about it. But she looked so serious, so determined, that I just nodded. "Listen to me, Emily," she continued, voice firm. "That money is for you. No one else. If anything happens to me, you go straight to Mr. Anderson, he's my lawyer. He'll make sure no one touches it." I remember feeling weird about the whole thing, like she was preparing for something she wasn't telling me. But I also knew better than to ask. A year later, she passed away. I was devastated. I barely spoke at the funeral, and when I did, it was just to thank people for coming. My mom, on the other hand, handled it like she was checking a box. She sat through the service, nodded along to the condolences, and then acted like nothing had happened. She never once asked about the college fund. At least, not yet. After Grandma Margaret passed, things got weird. For a while, it was just me and my mom again, the way it had always been. But then she started dressing up more. Staying out later. Wearing perfume that was way too fancy for grocery store runs. And then one night, she came home glowing. Actually glowing. "Emily," she said, all smiles. "I want you to meet someone." That someone was James. Now, I wasn't stupid. I knew what was happening. My mom was dating. The idea of her moving on from my dad wasn't exactly surprising, but what did surprise me was that James wasn't some sketchy guy from a bar. He was rich. Like, really rich. He owned some kind of financial consulting firm, wore suits even when he didn't have to, and drove a car that probably cost more than our entire house. And the way my mom looked at him? I had never seen her look at anything, not even me, the way she looked at James's money. At first, I didn't hate him. He was polite enough, asked me about school, and even brought me a book on astronomy when he found out I was into space. It wasn't love at first sight or anything, but it wasn't bad. Then I met his daughter, Jessica. The moment she walked into our house, I thought, oh, so this is how Cinderella felt. She was perfect. Blonde, pretty, expensive clothes, manicured nails, the whole deal. She stepped in like she owned the place, gave me a once-over, and then turned to James. "Where's my room?" "Oh, sweetheart, you'll be sharing with Emily," James said, like it was nothing. Jessica's face twisted like she'd just been told she had to live in a sewer. "I'm not sharing a room." For some stupid reason, I still wanted to believe we could be friends. So I tried. I decorated our room with little fairy lights, made space for her stuff, and even left a cute welcome note on her pillow. She took one look at it, ripped it down, and said, "I want my own space." And just like that, she got it. James and my mom turned the downstairs office into a bedroom just for her. They bought her brand new furniture, painted the walls her favorite color, and made sure she had everything she wanted. Meanwhile, I was stuck in my tiny bedroom, staring at the empty side where Jessica's bed was supposed to be. I should have seen it then, the beginning of the shift. James wasn't just moving in. He was taking over. And Jessica? She was about to become the new favorite. It didn't take long for James and Jessica to settle in. And by settle in, I mean completely rearrange my entire existence while I just tried to stay out of the way. At first, I told myself it was just an adjustment period. That things would even out. That my mom wouldn't suddenly forget I existed just because she had a new husband and stepdaughter. Yeah. Spoiler alert, that's exactly what happened. James spoiled Jessica rotten. She got the best of everything: designer clothes, new shoes, the latest iPhone before it even hit stores. She went to an elite private school where the tuition probably cost more than my entire future college fund. Meanwhile, I was still wearing hand-me-downs and taking the city bus to public school like I had my whole life. But what really hurt? The way my mom treated her. Jessica started calling her Mommy almost immediately. And my mom loved it. Every time Jessica said it, my mom practically glowed. She brushed Jessica's hair in the mornings, took her shopping on weekends, sat front row at every stupid school recital and event. Me? I could have set myself on fire and I don't think she would have noticed. One time I came home practically buzzing because I'd won first place at the district science fair. The judges had been super impressed with my project, something about renewable energy I don't even remember anymore. I burst through the door excited to tell her, only to find her and James celebrating Jessica's new dance costume like she just won an Olympic gold medal. "Oh, that's nice, Emily," my mom said when I told her. "That's nice." Jessica had Instagrammed a picture of her costume and my mom had shared it, gushing about how proud she was. Meanwhile, she didn't even know what my project was about. I stopped telling her things after that. It wasn't just about Jessica though. It was James too. He never outright said he didn't like me, but his actions spoke loud and clear. He started making comments. Little things, barely noticeable at first. "Emily, why don't you try dressing a little nicer? First impressions matter. Jessica's school is really challenging, maybe you wouldn't have gotten in, anyway. You're so quiet all the time. Maybe if you spoke up more you'd be included." I could feel it happening. The slow, deliberate way I was being pushed to the side. Erased. But I didn't fight it. Because if there was one thing I'd learned from my mother, it was this: if someone doesn't want you around, don't give them the satisfaction of begging for their attention. So I did what I'd always done. I focused on school. I kept my head down. And I reminded myself that one day, I'd get out of that house and never look back. By the time I hit high school, I had officially mastered the art of being invisible. At home, I was background noise, just a guest in my own house. Jessica was the star, my mom was the doting mother she never was to me, and James? Well, James treated me like an unpaid tenant who was overstaying her welcome. But school? School was mine. While Jessica was busy perfecting her fake social media smile and curating the perfect wardrobe for her private school mean girl aesthetic, I was grinding. Straight A's. Honor roll. Science fairs. Debate team. AP classes. Every academic achievement I could get my hands on I took. I lived in the library, spent weekends working on projects, and made sure every teacher knew my name for the right reasons. And guess what? It paid off. By junior year, I was stacking up awards. Teachers used my essays as examples. I was winning debate competitions and placing in statewide science fairs. My college applications were going to look insane. But did my family care? Not even a little. Jessica, on the other hand, got praise for everything. "Oh, Jessica, you got a B in algebra? We're so proud of you, sweetie. Look at Jessica's recital pictures. She's so talented." Jessica's school is so much harder than Emily's, so of course she doesn't have perfect grades. It's not the same. And my personal favorite. "You know, Emily, not everything is a competition." That one came after I casually mentioned getting the highest grade in my physics class. It was like they physically could not acknowledge my accomplishments. Like no matter what I did, it would never be enough. That's when it really hit me. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough. It was that I was never meant to win in this house. So I stopped trying with them. I stopped telling them about my grades, my competitions, my wins. Because what was the point? They weren't proud of me. They were annoyed by me. But here's the thing, I didn't need their validation. Because I had one thing they couldn't take away. My future. I was going to get out of that house. And nothing, not my mom, not James, not Jessica, was going to stop me. By my senior year, I had one goal: get out. I'd spent years being ignored, pushed aside, and treated like an afterthought in my own home. But it was fine. Because I had worked my ass off and soon, I wouldn't have to deal with them anymore. Then the email came. I still remember the exact moment. I was sitting alone at the kitchen table, eating cereal, when I saw the subject line. "Congratulations. You've been awarded a full scholarship to State University." I nearly dropped my spoon. I read it twice. 3 times. Then again, just to be sure. Full scholarship. Full. That meant tuition, housing, meals, everything covered. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe. I wouldn't have to beg my mom and James for help. I wouldn't have to touch the college fund Grandma Margaret had left me. I could actually save it for extra expenses, emergencies, or even grad school. For the first time ever, I had options. I sat there, grinning at my phone like an idiot, until the front door opened. Jessica walked in, dropped her designer bag on the floor, and sighed dramatically. "Ugh. Mom and James are so stressed about my college stuff." I blinked. "Your college stuff?" She flopped onto the couch. "Yeah, my applications and everything. It's so annoying. I don't even know where I want to go, but Mom says I have to go somewhere impressive." Like, I get it, but also? Ugh. I stared at her. This girl who had everything handed to her was acting like applying to college was a chore. "What about your grades?" I asked. I knew for a fact that Jessica barely scraped by in most of her classes. She shrugged. "I mean, my GPA isn't great or whatever, so I probably won't get a scholarship. But it's fine. James and Mom said they'd take care of it." My stomach twisted. Jessica was going to get her whole education paid for just because James had money. Meanwhile, I had worked my ass off for years, won a full-ride scholarship, and nobody in this house even cared. But whatever. I didn't need them. I had my scholarship, my college fund, and a plan. At least that's what I thought. Because a week later, my mom and James sat me down at the dining table. And the second I saw their faces, I knew something was wrong. James folded his hands on the table, looking serious. "Emily, we need to talk about your college fund." My heart started pounding. "What about it?" My mom sighed like this was hard for her. "Sweetheart, you know we love you and want the best for both you and Jessica." "Oh hell no." I knew where this was going. "We were thinking," James continued, "since you got a full scholarship, maybe it would be best if you shared some of the college fund with Jessica." Silence. My ears started ringing. They were serious. Jessica, who had spent years treating me like garbage, who had been handed everything, who had never once had to work for anything, they wanted me to give her my money? I let out a breath and laughed. They both looked shocked, like they weren't expecting me to find this entire conversation hilarious. "You're joking, right?" I said, wiping my eyes. "You have to be joking." James's face hardened. "Emily, this isn't funny. We're talking about your sister's future." "Her future?" I repeated, my voice rising. "What about my future?" "That money was left to me by Grandma Margaret. It's not yours to take." Mom frowned. "Sweetheart, don't be so selfish." "Oh, that did it." I snapped. "Selfish?" I hissed. "You're calling me selfish? I've worked my ass off for years while you've ignored me. I got a full scholarship on my own, and now that I don't need the money, you suddenly want to take it?" For Jessica. Jessica, who had been scrolling on her phone this whole time, finally looked up. Ugh, why are you freaking out? You don't even need it. I turned to her. That's not the point. Grandma Margaret left that money for me because she actually cared about my future. It's not my fault you didn't bother to apply for scholarships. Jessica rolled her eyes. God, why do you always have to act like you're better than everyone? Because I am better than you, I shot back. At least I don't expect people to hand me everything. James slammed his fist on the table. That's enough. We all went silent. He exhaled sharply and rubbed his temples. Emily, I know you think this is unfair, but you're part of this family. Families help each other. I crossed my arms. Funny. Because no one in this family has ever helped me. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. You need to think about what kind of person you want to be, Emily. This isn't a good look for you. I pushed my chair back and stood. You know what? You're right. I do need to think about the kind of person I want to be. I grabbed my phone and turned to leave. And I'm thinking I don't want to be the kind of person who gets walked all over by people who don't give a damn about me. Then I walked out. I didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was crystal clear. They were not getting a single cent from me. I don't know what I expected after I walked out of that conversation. Maybe they'd realize how ridiculous they were being. Maybe they'd drop it. Yeah. Wishful thinking. For the next few days, my mom and James acted like nothing had happened. Which, honestly, was fine by me. I avoided them, they avoided me, and the house was finally peaceful. Until the third night, when I came home to find James sitting in the living room, a glass of whiskey in his hand. My mom stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, looking pissed. Jessica was nowhere to be seen. This was an ambush. Sit, James said. I didn't move. No thanks. Mom sighed dramatically. Emily, don't be childish. Just sit down. Oh, I was the childish one? The irony. I crossed my arms. Unless this is you apologizing for trying to steal my money, we have nothing to talk about. James's jaw clenched. That money isn't just yours, Emily. It's money your family could use. No, I said, staring him down. It's money that Grandma Margaret left for me. It's legally mine, and you have no right to it. His lips curled slightly like he was trying to keep his cool. Jessica needs this, Emily. She's your sister. She's not my sister, I snapped. She's your daughter. And she's your responsibility. Not mine. My mom gasped. How can you say that? How? I laughed bitterly. Because for the past 5 years you've treated her like your only child. And now you're trying to steal from me to make sure she keeps getting whatever she wants. James took a deep breath and set down his glass. When he looked at me again, his eyes were cold. Calculating. You're being selfish. I smirked. And he wasn't expecting that. He blinked, then turned to my mom, like she was supposed to fix me. She exhaled sharply, like this was so hard for her. Emily, we're giving you a choice. Either you agree to share the money with Jessica, or... She hesitated. I tilted my head. Or what? James leaned forward. Or you find somewhere else to live before you turn 18. Silence. I stared at them, waiting for the punchline. Waiting for my mom to take it back. She didn't. She just stood there, arms crossed, looking at me like I was a problem that needed solving. And that's when it hit me. They were serious. They were actually kicking me out because I wouldn't hand over my inheritance. I felt a hollow kind of calm settle over me. I nodded. Okay. My mom frowned. What do you mean, okay? I mean okay. I'll go. James scoffed. Don't be dramatic, Emily. Oh, I'm not. I'm just making things easier for you. I turned on my heel and headed upstairs. I heard my mom call after me, but I ignored her. I had work to do. Because if they thought they could scare me into giving them what they wanted, they had severely underestimated me. I spent the entire night planning. If James and my mom thought they could push me out with nowhere to go, they had severely underestimated me. They probably assumed I'd cave, that I'd come crawling back, that I'd break down and hand over my college fund just so I could keep a roof over my head. Yeah. Not happening. The next morning, while James and my mom were busy fawning over Jessica's latest crisis, she broke a nail or something equally stupid, I locked myself in my room and made 2 important calls. The moment he picked up, I wasted no time. Mr. Anderson, this is Emily. I need to confirm something about my college fund. Ah, Emily. His voice was warm, but professional. I was wondering when you'd call. I assume this is about your mother. Bingo. She and James are trying to take the money, I said bluntly. Can they? No, he said immediately. Your grandmother was very clear in her will. The fund is in your name, and no one, not even your mother, can access it without your consent. I closed my eyes and let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. But he continued, I had a feeling this might happen, so I took precautions. I frowned. What do you mean? The account requires dual authorization, yours and mine. No money can be moved without your signature and my approval. Grandma Margaret, you legend. I grinned. So even if they tried to forge my signature? The bank would flag it immediately and they'd be facing legal consequences. I love this man. Thank you, Mr. Anderson, I said, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Of course, Emily. If they give you any more trouble, let me know. Oh, I had no doubt they would. Next, I called the property manager of an apartment complex near State University. Hi, I'm looking for a studio or one-bedroom apartment available for move-in within the next month, I said, trying to sound as mature as possible. We do have a few units available, the woman said. Do you have proof of income? I hesitated. I have a trust fund. I can provide bank statements. That works, she said. Do you want to schedule a tour? Absolutely. By the time I hung up, my plan was set. 1. I'd tour the apartment and lock it down. I had the money, and once I moved in, I'd be free. 2. I'd quietly start packing. No sudden movements. No clues. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of knowing what I was up to. 3. I'd leave on my 18th birthday. The moment I was legally an adult, I was gone. No fighting. No drama. Just gone. And when they realized they couldn't touch a single penny of my money, that was going to be glorious. For the next few weeks, I played the role of the obedient, defeated daughter. I kept my head down. I didn't argue. I didn't bring up the college fund again. I let James and my mom think they had won, that I was still weighing my choices, that I was definitely considering their oh-so-generous offer to hand over my money to Jessica. Meanwhile, I finalized my apartment lease, packed my things in secret, and waited. Then finally, my 18th birthday rolled around. I didn't wake up to a happy birthday, or homemade breakfast, or even a damn card. Nope. The first thing my mom said to me that morning was, So have you made a decision yet? I smiled. Yeah. I'm moving out. And then I walked past her, grabbed my already packed suitcase, and left. The screaming started as soon as she realized what was happening. Emily, what the hell do you think you're doing? James stormed into the room, looking pissed. Where do you think you're going? To my apartment, I said casually, dragging my suitcase to the door. You know, the one I rented with my own money? The money you can't touch. My mom looked like she was about to have a stroke. James stepped forward, his face red. You are being unbelievably ungrateful, Emily. We raised you. I turned to him, completely unfazed. You ignored me for years. You treated me like I was a burden. You tried to steal from me. So forgive me if I don't cry over leaving. And with that, I walked out. No goodbyes. No second chances. I blocked their numbers before I even got to my new place. I should have known my mom wouldn't just let me go quietly. 2 days later, I got a text from one of my old teachers. Hey, Emily. Just a heads up, your mom is posting about you on Facebook. Oh, this I had to see. I logged into my rarely used account and went straight to my mom's page. And there it was. A long, dramatic post about how I had abandoned my family, how I had selfishly refused to help my struggling sister, how I had turned my back on the people who sacrificed everything for me. She had tagged family members. Her friends. Jessica. And the comments? It was a war zone. Some people were on her side. Wow, I can't believe Emily would be so selfish. Family comes first. After everything you've done for her? Heartbreaking. But then, there were the people who knew the truth. Didn't Emily get a full scholarship? Why would she need to give Jessica her money? Wait, isn't that the fund her grandmother left her? Why would she have to share it? I taught Emily in high school. She worked so hard, and I never once saw you at any of her events. But you expect her to fund Jessica's education? Sounds like favoritism to me. And then came my favorite comment, one from our old neighbor. Lisa, be honest. You ignored Emily for years. We all saw it. Now you're mad she's independent? That's on you. My mom started arguing in the comments. Then Jessica jumped in. Jessica. Emily always thought she was better than me. She was so stuck up. Someone replied. Maybe she just got tired of being treated like crap while you got everything handed to you. I sat there sipping my coffee, watching my mom completely destroy her own reputation in real time. It was beautiful. Over the next week, I started hearing from family members. Some sent me supportive messages. Good for you, Emily. You deserve better. I had no idea things were this bad. Stay strong. Others tried to guilt-trip me. She's still your mother. You should forgive her. You know how much your mom has been crying? Yeah, well, I cried too. For years. And nobody gave a damn. By the end of the month, my mom stopped posting. She had completely embarrassed herself, lost a lot of sympathy, and worst of all for her anyway, she had zero control over me anymore. And that felt better than anything. For the first time in my life, I woke up in a place that felt like mine. No screaming. No guilt-tripping. No walking on eggshells. Just me, in my tiny but perfect apartment, with a future that belonged only to me. It had been a month since I left my mom's house. A month since she tried and failed to steal my college fund. A month since she publicly embarrassed herself so badly that she had to go radio silent on Facebook. I thought I'd feel guilty. I didn't. College started off better than I could have imagined. I made friends, actual friends who didn't expect anything from me. My professors were amazing. My classes were challenging in the best way. And most importantly, I had freedom. I decorated my apartment the way I wanted. I came home to peace and quiet. I made my own choices without anyone trying to manipulate me. And every morning when I woke up and realized I was finally free, I couldn't help but smile. Of course, my mom couldn't leave me alone forever. One day, I got a text from an unknown number. Mom. Emily, please call me. We need to talk. I stared at it for a long time. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I laughed. Because I finally understood something. I owed her nothing. She had made her choices. She had treated me like I was invisible for years. She had tried to steal from me, manipulate me, and kick me out when she didn't get what she wanted. And now that she had to deal with the consequences, that was her problem. I blocked the number. Over time, I thought about them less and less. My mom, James, Jessica, they had controlled my life for so long, but now, they were just background noise. Footnotes in a story that no longer belonged to them. Grandma Margaret had seen this coming. That's why she made sure I had something nobody could take away. A future. And now? I was living it. And it felt damn good.